Welcome back. Here is Joanna Pilatovic and Margaret Rogers van Coops. Hello, Margaret.
Hi, Joanna. I'm so happy that we can do these little chats because it gives us an opportunity to share things that we know.
That's fantastic. Exactly. This time it will be open conversation about channeling. Let me introduce us just shortly in case someone didn't see our previous videos or interview with you. So I am adults coach from Warsaw University. I am dance teacher, dancer, choreographer, abstract art painter, and of course author. And with me, Margaret Rogers van Coops is healer, crystal therapist, psychic. She did so much and started her path pretty early, as you will find out with us when we talk about it. Psychic reader, also author, healer. I don't know if I mentioned everything because it's so much. You wrote number of script. You were also working as an actress. You have excessive, I would say, experience in so many disciplines, spiritual and also as an artist.
Yeah, I have to admit that my instinct, my intuition from childhood was always to listen to my spirit guides who told me that I could do anything I put my mind to, as did my father. And so, I would just hear voices and tell people and heal people and do all that. And so by the time I was 5, it was normal for me, just like it would be normal for other children to say go learn skipping with the skipping rope. I was busy looking at leaves and listening to spirit guides telling me what this was good for and so on. And I just wanted to point out that there are a lot of babies today who are born like I was so long ago, and they are very, very psychic. And some of them have got mummies and daddies who don't know anything about psychic stuff. So I hope people will stay on with us and learn a few things because they'll be able to A, help themselves, and B, help their children. So it's very important, I think.
Yes. So
Yeah.
I will just tell shortly what we're going to exactly talk about. We're going to talk about channeling, also about trance, about if everybody can do that, what are the ways, if we can teach ourselves that, or we need a teacher, certain literature, also about protection, about what is dangerous, what's not, and also about how to choose the best channeler for ourselves. And everything what we gonna mention here is our experience. And I would advise people, would suggest maybe to use common sense in choosing and your own intuition, because there is so much out there and there are great channelers. And there are also people who are pretending, or they think so, because this spiritual business, of course, it's also in a way, in a sense, abused. So people making money on it, but not always having our best interest. So coming back to the topic and giving voice to you, first of all, maybe you start how it started with you, how you heard the first connection to channeling, how it was for you.
Well, as I said, I was a small child, and in my book, my journey into the oneness that I showed last time, I do actually tell a lot of stories of the things that I did. But the most incredible thing was hearing in sound around, all around me, 4.5, the voice of God telling me that. Short version of that, I'm not repeating everything. That I was here for a purpose and I was going to help those who are sick and suffering. And I did. And my real break into it was hearing not ascended masters, but lost spirits, people who had been killed, because I was born in 1942. So I was hearing, these spirits saying, help me, help me. And I had to be with the oneness, and then I would see a vortex open up in my room and see them all going in there. And then I knew Spirit was taking them to what we called heaven in those days. And then now today we call it the astral and different things like that.
Yeah.
But the thing about being psychic is there's a connotation around it that it's strange and it's abnormal and only some people can do it and it's a gift. The reality truth is we all have it. It's the nature of our essence that comes into our consciousness at birth, that is stimulated by birth, that brings that forward, which gives us the 5 senses that we have. So when I'm teaching, I always tell people, you've got to pay attention to your 5 physical senses. And most people don't, because they're in their heads worrying about whether they got this or that. And you can imagine you're 7 years old and you're going to school and you're told you have to write an essay. And you have to write it about a topic, and you have no idea what they're talking about. Well, back in those days, there was only the library. But today, kids can go online and look up all sorts of stuff. So they copy, they cut and paste, and so on. And they're missing an emotional attachment to what they're learning. They're missing the understanding of truth. And so, then they get frustrated because there is something going on in their head that they don't know what it is. And they go to parents or teachers and say, I know this and so on about something. And the parent looks at them and says, oh, well, yeah, it's just fantasy. Mm-hmm. And that's put down for a lot of people. And then on the other side of the fence, we have gypsies and people like that existed when I was little, who would say, cross my palm with some silver and I will give you, some message. Mm-hmm. And actually, I did find some good ones and some bad ones. So my point here is that I always say to all my students, if you want a reading, the first question is, what is your policy? And if they say, well, you have to pay me first and there's no refund and all that kind of thing, I say walk away. Because a genuine psychic knows they're good at what they do, and they will have a policy that says, if you don't think that I have helped you, don't pay me.
Yeah, that's a fair statement.
That's a very fair statement. Or if you feel that you haven't understood what I've said, you're welcome to come back for another session for free. Someone who is really good at what they do will always be there to help someone. I do so many, because I'm a minister as well, I do a lot for free. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's the first thing I want to say for people who want to get into the paranormal thing. There are many, many books out there, including me. I've written lots of books. And you got to really, I always said to Jesus right at the beginning when he showed me the Bible, I said, how much is this real? And he actually tore it in half and gave me half and tossed the other over my head. At the time, I took it as half of the Bible is not real. Uh-huh. Yes. And I want to point out here, as I learned through my life, you could say to someone, here's a nice new computer, and it's really everything you need. And then down the road, you find out that the pitch was not true, and there's all sorts of things that aren't what we need. Well, It's the same with the word of mouth. People embellish. They get, hear a story and they add to it. So I always say, record the reading. Now, a lot of mediums will say, oh, no, I don't let people record because, there might be some comeback. Well, the point is, if there's a comeback, they haven't done a good job. So my warning is also ask whoever you're going to go and see, can I bring my phone or whatever they've got and record it? That way you're protecting yourself, because if someone isn't doing a good job, they're going to make excuses. Yes. And your instinct and your intuition will say something about that. Now, you, for example, you do like that to talk about your tarot class, things that you do there. Do you want to have a little bit about that?
Yes, I'm going to share just a little bit about it, just in a nutshell. I actually never, ever wanted to do any service like that for people. And I started, of course, with myself because I was very curious and things were happening to me. So I also heard something, I had images, I had dreams. And first time I had runes cards with me, and I read them. Somebody told me, like, I cannot read them, but you may read them. I know you are able to read them. And I say, no, not really. But then I started to read for my friends first time, and then I met a psychic person in the Netherlands, and she told me, I sense from you that you don't like tarot cards and you don't want to touch them. And that was true. I never want to touch tarot cards because I learned about their bad connotation. So I said, yes, it's true. And she said, tarot will talk to you. So I never learned tarot. I accidentally, another time, I got a gift from my another friend, and it was tarot cards, very nice, beautiful cards. And this is how it started. The images were indeed, like, communicating with me. And this is how I started to read for other people. It's very important you mentioned something about how to differentiate if something can read that good. I had no idea I can do it. I say, oh my God, I'm probably talking nonsense because once I remember my mom called me from another country where she was visiting, and she said, I have a person here. She wants a reading through the phone. And I say, how? I cannot do that. And I read the cards through the phone. I don't even remember the name of that person, and I don't remember what I was talking. And this person, I only know that told my mom, like, wow, who is your daughter? What is she doing? Everything was precise, and she was impressed. I don't remember what I was talking about. Nothing.
And that's part of the psyche, you see, because your subliminal self, your subconscious self can come forward into your consciousness. So, for example, if you saw in your mind a chocolate box, you would immediately think of all the centers. And I'm going to take a line out of, that movie, where he says all the chocolates are different inside. Mm-hmm. And we have a choice in that we feel the energy of the person we're reading, that psychometry. Mm-hmm. And we know, for example, if I see a hard-centered chocolate as an example, that they have a hard center in their being. Why? So then I want to ask, are they blocked? And if I get another picture of literally a block, because I'm being so literal here, then I know that their heart is blocked and they're not listening to their feelings. They're too much in their head. And a lot of it started like that when I was 5 years old. I'd be on a bus and I get this message and I'm so nervous to go up to a stranger. Uh-huh. So I waited till I was getting off the bus, and I just throw at them like, don't worry, it's okay. You won't be out in the street. You got a home. And they go, what? And of course I'm getting off. They say, wait, stop, the bus conductor, stop. I want to know. And they get off and ask me a bit more, and that's how it was in those days. But today, I will say, by the way, tarot cards, my first pack was a Marseille pack, and there's no pictures, just the king, queen, and so on. Yeah. And so I had to listen to spirit. And now today, people make their own. Like you've been doing some wonderful paintings there behind you. You're going to make it
part of the cards that I'm planning to publish. Yes.
Right. See, and that's what a lot of people are doing, and that's good because they're coming out with their emotional senses into their logical senses, harmonizing the two, and then trusting their spirit self. And that is the most important thing, is to trust your spirit, because if you don't trust your spirit, how can you trust your spirit guides? So the channeling has to be a unity of you with the oneness, which is now, I started that word, by the way, when I was a child. Yeah. And now it's all all the whole world says it. Little did I know, you see just how words travel. And that's an important thing to hear here, that the oneness is coming down into all of us now. There was a time when there was a few and they told us it was a gift. But it really is, we've always all had it.
It is natural for children, of course. They already have that. They're losing with time because it's like a muscle. If it's not used, we are tending to lose it. We don't develop it, so we don't see. But kids are very often seeing other entities like ghosts. They perceiving much more. They see auras. We entered already the topic how to channel yourself. You started already give those tips because we pretty well covered, I suppose, how to differentiate if someone is a good channeler or if resonates with us, what to pay attention to, so how to pick and have a good experience. And now we are entering the area how to channel for yourself. So you use those five senses you mentioned. There is also you started to talk about symbols. You saw symbols of the chocolate. So this is the messages for ourselves to decipher. And we, as you heard it already in your earliest experience, we can have a very vivid sentences coming to us, like you had, and especially what's happening for authors like you. I already know that because we spoke before. You are channeling your books, so you're writing them and you hear those voices. And this is how it's happening to me, those, audio is coming, right?
And there are three ways for audio, and depending on a person's brain and how they've downloaded their soul structure coding, their DNA and the RNA from outside forces, because we we absorb a lot of stuff from a lot of people. And our poor little brain here has to process them all. And it's like saying we have a filing department in our brain. Some of it's conscious, some of it's subconscious, and some of it's deep subconscious. Now, when you're going to be a channeler, you got to go into the deep subconscious. And the first thing that all my students over the years have always said to me is, will some harm come to me? Because they've heard so much stuff about evil from religions and philosophies and whatever's around the world. And when I think back, and I'm just going to throw in something that I really saw to give people who are now young an idea of how bad it was back in right back in the early 1900s, where people were saying to people, I'm hearing voices. And then they put them in a mental asylum, and then they pour into their head and make a hole and destroy some of the nerve endings in the brain.
This procedure is not happening anymore.
I'm not using the technical words here because I'm hoping the people who are listening will understand that rather than, And I was appalled, absolutely appalled that people were trying to make people, and if we go back into the 19th century, it was even worse. I mean, a man, for example, could lock up his wife because he wants to get rid of her so he can have her inheritance, and tell the local docs, my wife's insane because she had a dream. That's how bad it was.
Yeah.
So now was saying, what was your dream about, or what was the symbology of it? And here we are now in the 21st century saying, I had a dream and it means this and it means that, so we've come a long way in over, nearly 200 years. And I've made it my business throughout my life to help people who are in some way developing their psyche. When they come to me, I will sit down with them and I will teach them how to use their brain to understand those images, to understand their dialogue.
Yes.
For example, if I say the cat sat on the mat, that's my way of speaking. But if a spirit guide says, here is the mat with a cat, I'm going to go, what? Because it's come to me in a different way from the way I think. So intellectually, when we're getting messages, one of the things we have to look for is a change in dialogue. We have
Yes.
to know our own dialogue so that when we get a little bit different dialogue in our thoughts, in our own voice, you have to say, aha, that is a message. And a
Yes.
lot of
Yes.
people don't get that training, and they come to me and they go, I'm feeling like I'm insane. And you say, why? And they say, well, I'm hearing old English. Dost thou cometh into thine own? And you sit there and go, what? I don't speak like that. Well, that's a very obvious one. And when I was young, I had a lot of that because I was studying Shakespeare and all those things, being British, you know. And so a lot of times my spirit guides would talk to me in Old English. And then I'd be, for example, I remember one time, and I say categorically, and you know I don't speak German. I
Mm-hmm.
was cleaning the stairs with the vacuum cleaner, and it was very loud. And I got all the way down to the bottom, and I realized as I went to pull off the vacuum cleaner that I had just been listening to a conversation in German, and I understood every word of it. And as I came back to me, Margaret, consciously, was like, huh, you know, I've just done that. And that was like a wake up call. Now, sometimes the guides will do that. They'll put a foreign language in your head, and you can say it, but and you know what it means, but you can't remember it afterwards. Has that
Yes.
happened to you?
Yes.
Because
Um, it happened to me in the dream when I think I mentioned that before, that part, when some ancient language, very beautiful written, it was displayed on the screen, and I said to the voice that were telling me, the voices were telling me to learn, to read and learn, and I say I cannot learn because I don't understand the language, and they said simply, just listen and you will understand. So simple. So that was part of that to this experience. I will compress a little bit what we talk about, because you talk about those senses. It can go through, as we said, audio, visual, symbols, words, sounds, smells. But also, what can be very disturbing for some people, it can go through the feelings in your body. So you suddenly may have a pains that are not yours. You may be really freaking out. That happens to me a lot, actually. And few seconds later, you may meet somebody, and this person suffers from something. And empaths especially have that. You perceive it through your own skin. Also, it was happening to me through Reiki. So basically, I could, touch someone, and my hands in a certain parts, they started to hurt. Or if I was doing it on a distance and I was imagining scanning the person, I could see the light, the shades of the person. And of course, I cannot prove it. So just to digress from that, anything what I'm talking about, nobody has to believe me. I rather prefer that people don't believe me. They check it for themselves and they see the results.
Yeah, and when I was 5 years old, of course, what you were talking about, I was healing, my dad's regiment. But the bottom line is that when we feel something in the body, it's going to be sort of the opposite of what you expect to believe. So, for example, if you're with someone and they're negative, you can suddenly be sweating profusely because their aura is mixing with yours, and the friction between a negative and a positive aura has to blend, and intermingle. And so the healer takes on some of the negative. Now that's where they have to learn to protect themselves, spend a lot of
Yes, that's a
time,
very dangerous one. Yeah.
yeah, teaching them how to not, you can feel them, you can share them, you can release what they have, but you got to be able to give it to God, to the oneness in the right way, and you've got to earth yourself. So these are lessons that I teach. I teach psychic development, and I might add here what good point to do. that we're looking at teaching psychic development. So if anybody's listening wants to learn, we can ask them to please either sign underneath the video or go to our sites, and we'll give that message a bit later.
Yeah, there's two ways, because if there is a need for some basic course that we can do online, that's perfect. The speciality, the protection part, the basic part of the protection is very important. We can share some of it online, but when people are practicing, especially with Reiki, especially with healing, because personally, I pass someone and I can sense thoughts, right? And sometimes it's hard to be around people. But if someone deals with channeling, with healing, and takes on something, it can be very overwhelming. So I wouldn't advise to practice it to heal people immediately, especially that we don't know with what we are dealing. Is it a headache or it is a cancer? That's a totally different things to deal with. And there is another thing, if what is the destiny of the soul, but that's probably another topic for now. So we can share that, but there is no, I think there is no illusion for anybody at this moment. Everything what we are talking about, it takes practice, it takes consciousness, it takes process, I would say, because we need a consciousness. We need to differentiate what is us and what is the perception we are getting from someone else or from other entity or, you know, spirit. And we also need to know sort of our shadow. So, for example, I'm also following process-oriented psychology. So we need to be aware of two sides of what's happening to us. This part of us who is doing something that is more accessible, and what we are trying to push away, the secondary process that is happening in the background, because sometimes we may not willing to help someone from different reasons.
Can I interrupt you for a minute? One of the things that I always say to my students is we have to look at fear, pain, anger, guilt, and loss. And we all go through that, even as a 2-year-old, you know, like you're playing with a toy in, say, kindergarten, and someone else comes up, you know, another kid, and takes your toy, and you start crying. And you don't realize that you've made an emotional memory in a cellular neuromuscular memory format within your body. And so years and years and years have gone by, and you're now 40, and somebody has promised you, say, some business deal, and you find out that they took $300 from you or something, and you couldn't afford it, and they didn't do what they said they were going to do, and you're left feeling miserable. And immediately your aura is going to be vibrating in the negative. And if there happens to be negative people around you or negative spirits, and you're open in that, you're saying, "Poor me, and I'm talking about all this and all of that, and I'm, you know, worry, and so on," you're making yourself even more negative. You are then empathetic with other people who are negative. And if you sit with them for too long, you're both all going to go downhill very quickly in terms of negativity. And then this is the part that worries me, because if they are intuitively psychic, they could attract to them one of these lost spirits I was talking about, like in the war that I was uplifting, or when I was working in the mental institutes, and I would see them hanging around still in the halls there and have to lift them to heaven. You know, we don't want those in our auric emanation. And ultimately, if it really got to, and I've had cases like this where the physical healed person has absorbed the spirit. So we've got two spirits in one body, and very negative. And there was an example, I'll give you a quick one, that I went to where I learned the hard way. As I was already a medium for Spiritualist Association of Great Britain, and I'd been asked to go to sit in a seance circle because a Catholic couple the wife had reported that her husband was sound asleep, and then suddenly he got up and attacked her and was very violent. And
Right.
this was a meek man. So we all sat there, and one of my colleagues volunteered to house the spirit that was the entity that was negative. Meanwhile, I'm looking at all the energy around, and I'm picking up that this whole area where they were living was an asylum area, and so on and so forth. And so the end of that seance was they got rid of this earthbound. I went home, lay in bed with my ex-husband then, it was a different marriage. And next thing I know, I've got this horrible, horrible, horrible entity like squashing me like 1,000,000,000,000 on my body and giving me awful, awful sexual pictures of things that none of us want to see. And I couldn't move, and I'm praying and I'm asking for my guides and so on. And finally I heard one of them say, reach out for my ex. And it was like struggling like this just to move my hand this far to find him. And then when I did, everything cleared. And I looked at my ex, and it was Red Cloud, who is one of my guides I had in those days, who actually lived here in America, and the Trail of Tears. I found all that out later. He never told me I was a child. And and then I went running to my colleague who I'd been working with. I said, you didn't tell me I had a horrible earthbound around me. And he said, oh, good. Did you pass the test? And I want people to realize that was in extreme circumstances because I was already very, very psychic. But in the beginning, people are going to have those negative tests, like somebody will turn up and feel cringy, and don't panic. Just learn to close down the chakras. You might want to talk about that, because we both can talk these things, but I give you a chance to talk about this.
Actually, you always trigger, when you say something, you always trigger the thought, of course, within me. I had also plenty of those experiences, they so-called negative, but they are part of a learning process. They are, in a way, they are very important because yes, we cannot recycle what we don't see. If people don't see those energies or thought forms, like, if I spend a night in an older house, or not even, it can be even a hotel. That happened even last year. I was with my cousin in a hotel, and all of a sudden, in the middle of the night, a little boy is piercing me in my head, knocking in my head, waking me up in, let's say, astral plane, kind of. And he was looking like the boy in a shorts, like after the Second War. He was completely different century. So I did what I could, and there are plenty of ways, because you can send the spirit, you can have your formula for it, you can use a prayer. First, what I learned, because I'm from the Catholic family, that's how I was raised. So I always was learning to use the prayer. But of course, the power of prayer, the certain wording we do, it can be mantra, it can be affirmation, it can be your own incantation, it can be many things. It all depends how you say it, with what intention, what images you put around. So these things are important, because sometimes there are ghosts, sometimes there are those thought forms you said about bound spirits, to ground us, to prepare us before. So that's what maybe I'm giving you voice now, because you are doing it really great about those grounding ourselves by breathing. Maybe you want to add something to it, to the images, protection on every level.
I have a very simple one. I can't stand up because then you're losing, but I'm going to show. It's got to be physical, because you're reprogramming the cells, the nerves, the emotions, the mind, the muscles, and every part inside your body. But you don't know that you're doing it unless you do something physical. That's how the brain works. We are biogenetically engineered robots in a way.
No.
And so we reprogram ourselves all the time. So one of the things I do for the crown chakra is I make, like little wings, and I say, you breathe and bring your hands up and say, to a cup shape and you say close down. And that means to anybody else in the human world, I'm not available. I'm only available to the ascended masters, right?
Okay.
And for the third eye, you frown.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you frown, you're saying close it. It's like shutting your eye. And you can shut
Mm-hmm.
your eyes as well if you want to do that. For the throat, you swallow. And you can swallow as many times as you want. And that closes the throat chakra. And then for the heart chakra, you breathe in. And as you breathe in, you hold that breath for a moment and you visualize a hole getting smaller. And you breathe out. And that closes down the heart chakra. That means that you're not going to pick up everybody's misery. You're going to
Mm-hmm.
only the purer energy of divine love. Okay, that's all we want, really, isn't it? We all want divine love. Everybody goes out and says, oh, there's this guy, he just loves me to death. And then they get married and then find out they hate one another. Well, we don't want that chakra open like that. You know, we want to close it down if we want to get into divine love so that we can get rid of that garbage that we think.
Yes.
The solar plexus is where we rationalize that garbage. Like if you're going to go for a driving test, you certainly feel the collywobbles, right? Will I pass and so on. So you pull those ab muscles in to a point where you feel you could hold them all day.
Mm-hmm.
And then you say close to yourself. And I ask my students to say it out loud because hearing is telling self. And then when you feel that closing tension, you let go of the abs, feeling the tension remaining. And it does stay there. Then you know it's closed. For your base chakra, squeeze all those private parts together and just say close and relax. And then there's a spleen chakra that runs from the left rear to the right front. I did make a little video, but I haven't put it up yet on this. But you know, it's like you put your left hand on your hip bone at the left rear, and you put your right hand on the hip bone at the right front. And then you can either, you know how mummies rock babies like this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That balances the chakras. That's why babies stop.
Ah.
Okay, so you can do that. And if you're really, really negative, you can make circles. I'm going to do it up here so they can see what I'm doing, like that. And you can go
Yeah.
that way and
Mm-hmm.
anti-clockwise, okay? Because there are two overlapping, I can't think of the word right now, you know, like the DNA strand, double helixes, thank you. After oneness. You know, so there's two of them, one for the higher self and one for the lower self. So they are entwining as well. So when you do these circles, you're actually realigning those double helix so that they entwine. And that way you're more able to channel the higher self into the lower self and give it the negative to the higher self so that you feel more divinely connected. And then for your hands, you close fists, they close, because the hand chakras are in here. And you can see, I hope you can see, mine are quite white in the middle. And I'm not totally open, but if I was to keep opening, it would get redder and redder. Okay. Mm-hmm. And then for the feet, you in the soles of your feet, you also have little white areas in the center of your foot. So you just wriggle your feet like this, you know, your toes and say close. And then you're completely closed down. And you will notice when you do that, you feel so much lighter, you know, especially if you've been at work all day or, you know, and you've had negative people or you've got the kids screaming around you all day. Do it even while they're around you. Do it at work. And I have some of my students, you know, closing down 10 and 20 times a day because someone can come up to you and say, oh, do you know something? And you go, oh, do I? Do you open up because you want to.
Yeah, you're dispersed with your energy, right? I'm gonna just compress what you said because it's very important. You use the word close, and one word, if it's repeat often, it's just like a perfect affirmation that is important because people can, of course, create their own protection. We just given an ideas, and I briefly will add to it. So you said the wording. The word is very much a close, close, close. So they are close, temporary, if we need it. And another thing you said, the gesture. The gesture works very good. It's like a ritual for our subconsciousness, and our subconsciousness needs that. then you also use the images. So this is something that people probably can play with it, what's working for them. So we suggest to try it out, what works. Some there is also many more of those techniques. There are column of light, there is the mirrors, there is breathing from bottom to above, that divine energy is spreading it.
Yeah, but let me tell you though, you see, when you do the light, you're not closing down, you're doing the opposite, you're opening up.
Oh yeah, but
People don't realize that. And then, there's the other part, draw from the earth. So you bring the two together in the heart and the soul. There's so many. But the ultimate thing is, whatever method you have, it works for you, do it. But in my experience of traveling throughout the world and dealing with many different religions and philosophies of the world, I found this anatomical way is the best.
okay. Okay.
Yeah, because we learn cellular neuromuscular memory from the moment we come out of the womb. As we struggle to come out, where our brain is stimulated by the physical contact of the body of the baby to the mother's channel as they're coming out, because before that they're in fluid, they're not touching anybody, okay, but they have absorbed the mother completely spiritually. In order to live inside the mother, the spirit of the baby to be, when it comes in, brings love, and that's why she blooms. And then as they get on through the period of pregnancy, the baby is absorbing all the mother's fear, pain, anger, guilt, worry, or whatever she's going through. Mm-hmm. So by the time you're born, you actually have a tremendous amount of knowledge. Now add to that your past lives, your soul coding.
Yeah.
I have been a nasty person in some of those past lives, or an absolute angel, we can choose. And so it's all in you. So we identify outside of ourselves with everything we see, correlated with everything that is programmed within us that we don't know we have. And that's why we've got a lot of children right now who are really brilliant in that they're tapping into those past lives. But we've also got a lot of children who have been killing one another and doing bad stuff. So they need to be trained. That's why I said that earlier on in the beginning.
I will go back to what you said because it's important. But I just want to present the two sides of the story, because if we close ourselves all around, let us be very clear. You're not closing yourself from the source. It's very important, because if you completely close yourself, there is no exchange. You cannot function anymore. That's just so people will know. It's not a total close up. You're closing. You're using the gesture. Some people are using also that gesture, as far as I saw it. And they use a different wording. So I don't know, of course, what will work on someone. Because someone can try what you just presented with a close or turn or show me the truth, or different commands, let's say, to your subconsciousness, so it's going to start reacting. In Reiki, we use the symbols. There is also a sort of a runic magic when you project the symbol or bindrun. But I'm not going to talk about that. That's a different sort of things, and it cannot be always positive. So I would be careful with that. So, yeah.
Can I just interject here that when I was young, the word Reiki didn't exist. It comes from Japan, and we called it the laying of hands. That's what it was called.
Okay.
And the laying of hands brought the Holy Spirit to you. And these are things that I learned when I was very, very young. And when I actually was in Japan teaching for years, of course, a lot of my students wanted to give me Reiki books and stuff, being translated from the original Japanese, from the man who actually channeled it and the woman who went on. And I'm going to shock you just for a little bit of information. When the Japanese put it on the market, they were charging something like $12,000 for level 1, which was yes. And I also want to say that the translation of the Reiki symbols is entirely different from the Western world's way they've taken it. So the reason I'm not destroying this, I'm just saying I want people to understand that there are
It's okay.
various teachers who are teaching various therapies, and they
Yeah.
all work as long as you remember to A, protect yourself, and B, close down after you've done the work.
I will add to it. If I may interrupt you for a second, I will add to it. Reiki, unfortunately, has a lot of bad connotation. I did my 3 degrees with completely different people. My last one was with someone from Berlin, very nice lady, and only because she touched me as a hello, and I felt very strong her aura, her presence. That's why I did it. But I found her accidentally. But when I was inquiring about Reiki, they wanted from me 10,000 euros in the Netherlands. And they told me I have to work for them for free for 10 years and then paying that money.
I know.
It was, and there was another thing. It's very dangerous because of course, I learned the hard way. So I just had enough luck to be around psychic people when that time. So they told me after first course that I can heal people. Of course, I didn't believe, but there was somebody that currently had operation and had a cancer, and he asked me to do a Reiki. And I say, okay, they told me it's safe, then I should do it, right? If somebody asks you, you should help. So I did that, and I felt enormous, like sucking energy out of me. It was totally enormous. And of course, I protected myself. I did the clearing with the water, everything what they said. And then I met this psychic woman, and she said, why in your aura there is a cancer? She took a hand, she did that and threw it away. So after that experience, I was very, very careful. Also, I heard that seances in the group, someone who says he does Reiki, and there is a group of seances. So I'm just telling that I am doing that. I'm not doing it publicly. I'm not having actually clients for Reiki. I'm doing situational prayers for the cause if someone really needs that, but really light and really, really protected. So it can be dangerous because I heard stories when someone trusted the group, and then those spirits you're talking about, those earthbound spirits, stick through Reiki to someone.
Yeah, and let me go on because we're talking about channeling. We don't want to get too much into the healing side
Absolutely,
today.
it's another one. Yes.
I'm going to bring us back into I was talking about the mind, where, when we're listening, or clairaudience it's called, the second way you're going to hear it is not your own voice, but maybe your mother, your father, or your best friend, or somebody up the road that you respect. And you'll be thinking, why am I hearing their voice? But you see, the spirit guides don't want to frighten you. If you suddenly heard like a strong, deep voice, then, I can't do an Indian accent, okay? But I mean, I really can't. I've tried and tried, but I'm on my own. But I'm going to ask Rama to just be with me for a minute. It is not that you do not know what you are doing, but you must be rather very scared about it. Because if you understand a little bit more of what you are doing, then you will be able to do everything. Thank you. So I can't do that unless I let him into my consciousness and work with him, you see. Because I'm not, that kind of person. Even though you mentioned in the beginning I was an actress, I'm not really an actress. I was in the background on stage. I was a little child, and I can't say I'm really an actress, but I have done a lot of stage work. But mostly I love the singing, and I used to do that, and songs from musicals and stuff like that. We dress up and act the scene, yeah. but I'm probably a long way from being good. But if I wanted to, I could, for example, I've got a singing voice, but when I was young, I had, when you're young, your voice hasn't mellowed and dropped. So I had a high, vibrato
Yeah.
soprano. And one day I'm in this circle, and a very famous woman who's long dead that nobody will even know about came through me, and I can't even do it, but I'll try it. It was like down there, and it's
You
like,
felt
and
it,
I,
yes.
I had a body. I'm a little blob in the room listening to my body in this deep, lower than alto voice, going, my God, So that's how much the spirit entities can come into us and channel through us and change our voice boxes and give us accents and so on. And that is real trance work.
That's
Now,
the
let
last
me,
part.
because what I want to say is people come to me and they say, I want to be a trance medium. And the first thing I say to them is, are you ready to share your body with a higher entity? And immediately they'll say yes. But then when I start training them, all the blocks come up because the fear comes up that if someone else comes into my body, just like an earthbound can come into my body, they won't go away. I'm not my own space anymore. I'm possessed. And
Yeah.
it's so a lot of people feel that even, if I channel like Archangel Haniel, there's a highest vibrations that you can go into the Archangel arena, shall we say, which I do now, but not as a child. I couldn't have done that because my vibration wasn't high enough. I had to evolve to find
Yeah.
my vibration, if you see what I mean. Well, a lot of people try and run before they can walk, and they want
Mm-hmm.
to, go into trance. And I
Yeah.
will pull them back time and time again. I'll say, okay, we are not going to do that. We are going to learn to write channel first,
Perfect.
write words
It's
of
no
whatever
joke.
it is, draw the
Yes.
pictures, what's in your head, and these kinds of things, so that they get used to sharing their body. And guides will actually move your arm and draw, you shut your eyes and draw something and you look down and it's perfect if
Mm.
you trust. So they'll move little parts of your body and things like that. But a lot of people will say they're in trance, but they're actually in the alpha state, and they sit with their eyes shut and then they speak. And I'm not belittling anyone, I'm just saying this is the ways of time. I remember coming over here in America in the 80s, and of course I was already a well-established trance channel medium. And there were people saying they were channeling, and I would go to those nights because I wanted to see, what Americans were doing. And I've got someone's, saying, I'm channeling dolphins. And they're going, making noises, And I'm looking at a Native American over their body, who's not a dolphin, So what we have to watch is that we don't have that super imagination coming in, pretending to
Mhm.
ourselves so that we feel comfortable to channel. It's trust issues. And so many people are afraid to trust the oneness. They're afraid to trust their psychic ability. They're afraid that the world will think they're an idiot. There's so much fear. Remember that. Then I said guilt. Guilt that they've got a skill nobody else has, and that makes them different. So they feel bad and they think everybody else is going to judge them and condemn them.
Yes.
So they feel guilty that they even are psychic, which is really amazing. You'd be amazed how many are. So I could go through them all. But, I teach and train my students. I have a workshop that I do over 2 days. Remember this book? I'm not going to go and push it a lot, but you remember I said about the picture at the back? Oh,
Expanding images. Mm-hmm.
yeah. I just want to find that book page just in case people don't realize. Um, this picture here. What I do
Mm-hmm.
is I print that up and give them one. And then I have them sit in partnerships and I change them around through the day. And I can tell you at the beginning of the day, people say, I say, who's psychic? And it's like one or two hands come up. And by the end of the day, all 50 hands are reaching for the sky
Yeah.
because I teach them they can read anybody. They can read their partners as they all change up. They can read the mothers of their partners that they haven't even laid eyes on, or the fathers. I have them read the guides, you know. So by the end of 2 days, they can absolutely give a reading and at the same time know how to deal with the changes of the energies of the people they're working with in the class, which also teaches them how to work with the colleagues at work or wherever they are. And so, this is something that really needs to be taught today because when I was a child, it was a rarity to find someone who was psychic. So there was nothing. But today, everybody is turned on, shall we say, their switch is on.
Yes, yes.
They are having something, but it's guesswork, and they're distrusting of it or they're insecure of it. And the fundamentalists, for example, 20 years ago, they were saying Pinocchio was an evil story. I mean, there were just so many different
Yes.
perceptions thrown out in all
Yeah.
directions during the New Age, in quotes, festivals of mind, body, and spirit, and all those things that I did. And I walked through all that, looking at the confusion and there's so many different points of views about what channeling is and the different modes and methods that people had.
Yeah.
And I do want to say loudly and clearly, by all means, go and explore whatever you are drawn to, but keep closed down.
Yeah.
Because you
Absolutely agree with
know,
you.
you
Yeah.
don't know what you're
Common
missing.
sense, intuition, and checking out with somebody that is more experienced than you. And you can check it out and see the results and also pay attention to the fears, guilt, and anything what arises, not to suppress
Angers
it,
and
but to work with it.
yeah, a lot of people don't realize just how angry they are. And
Yeah.
when the guides start working with them, they start bringing out this anger and yelling at their family and all this and that. And people say, "What's gotten into you?" And you say, And I remember going through that myself, because they have to get it out of us. They have to get the
Yeah.
fear, the
Yeah.
pain, the anger, in order to be able to trust that the divine love and divine wisdom will come to us. And my courses, whatever I'm teaching, most of them got 5 levels and they get diplomas and so on at the end. So because I think it's very important that people show that they have studied. So I have levels, 5 levels, and I have them go away and practice and come back and little Billy doos. It says Mrs. B said,
Yes.
you know,
I think we should put that information under the video, or if people are interested in the courses to offer and those levels to learn step by step how it really works. What does it really mean? Because sometimes the word channeling seems like, oh, fancy, something interesting. But here, step by step, it's better to go slow down and have the solid background, like, building the house from the fundaments of it, so you can be secure in what you're doing. So anybody, I would just say that now, if someone is interested, please connect or mention under the video you are interested, and when it's possible to give you another course, are you able to give courses through online?
Yeah, what I would do, I haven't actually done this online because I wanted to do
That's
it
it.
on Zoom,
Okay.
but I'm still trying to figure out how to work with that. But it is a little bit difficult to do partnership work because even though I know you're on Hangouts, you can put them in a room and stuff, but I haven't learned all that. So if anyone's listening that could help us, they might want to get in touch with you or me and volunteer somehow to help us do that. But what I usually do is I'll give the theory, And then I'll arrange a place where people can come to for the 2 days practical.
Yes, that would be best.
And
Yes.
I happen to live near Las Vegas, which is a destination that everybody wants to come to. So I try, when I do classes, I try and say have them work with me from say 9 until 4, and then they can go off and gamble and see a show or do something.
Right.
You know,
Yes.
so I try and make it a happy time for them. But especially in Las Vegas, you've got to close down. That's
Yes.
people.
Yes. I was there. I even gambled because everybody did, so I tried to.
So, but we can arrange and we can adapt. I haven't been to Germany for years, but I could come there too, so
That's
who knows?
fantastic because we develop a community of artists, so similar-minded people, creatives who are also perceiving more. And we're starting that here. So we also exchanging, interested in exchanging. So anything, Arizona, Germany, or any other place that is possible. And if people are interested in different countries, we are able to travel. I know you still like to travel.
Mhm.
You didn't go to Japan for a while, but now you just moved to Arizona because it's interesting thing because not only you travel a lot in your life, but you had this amazing perspective from after the Second War, how all of that develops and how is it differences in those countries. So you have this understanding for different cultures,
Mm,
people
yeah,
in a different timing, how it gravitates, how it changes.
yeah. Like for example, when I was in India, our tour guides take us all over the different areas, and I'm actually telling, we're on the bus, you're going to A, B, and C, and I'm actually already channeling, telling them what they're going to see. because what
So
telling
that,
me is, for
yes.
example, the Jahanta caves were found by the British, and they were all covered with vines when they were found. And I didn't even know they even existed, and we just told we're going to the Jahanta caves. And here I am, and I'm saying, now these, you're going to see a ginormous Buddha, and the way they made it is they started at the top and they cut the head, and then they went down and down and down and down and down and made the sitting Buddha. And they were looking at me like, how do you know that? Did you read it in a book? No, I said, Spirit just told me. And then we get there, and then lo and behold, my interpreter, who hasn't been listening, tells us exactly the same thing. And so after a while, all my students, because we were going to different ashrams, all my students were, coming to me and saying, okay, what are we going to see today?
Right.
But it was good for me because I was seeing leaves and plants, and I'm touching, because I'm a touchy person, So I'm touching, and I know that's poisonous and that's not, and that kind of thing, which is what
Yeah.
humans did in ancient times, long before, you had to trial and effort, and your instinct would tell you, no, that's not a good plant. Oh, this is a very good one, and you would have to experiment. Do you make a balm with it, or do you rub it on your body, or do you swallow it, or do you just hold it in your tongue and spit it out, and I would like to bring that back into people's consciousness, which is another part
Yes.
of channeling. Because when you put something on your tongue, just a tip, it tells you wrong for me or right for me. And then you ask yourself, right for me, where for me? And it might be suddenly you go, liver, okay, liver inside or outside? Inside, eat it. Outside, put it here. And I was doing that, when because I started nursing when I was 16 with, people who were dying. So I saw a lot of death and that kind of thing. And, death was around me being World War II. So it was just death, 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 Where's life, And I was chronically depressed till I clinically died. And then I came back with the joy of life. And now I'm with the joy of life trying to pick people up with the death thing. And I went through that for from the late 70s to the late 90s. because everybody was so negative still, even though we had mind, body, and spirit events and whole life expos and things. Everybody was still very negative because the RNA and the DNA, Vietnam in America, and
Yes,
and
that's the
so forth.
frequency. It takes time.
Uh,
Yeah.
takes time. And here our country's upside down with the president, and I've just written this new book, which is all about soul structure coding, DNA and RNA of his ancestors, which I'm going to get out soon, hopefully. And as I'm writing it, I'm thinking of my own ancestry, because I've got the DNA and the RNA going back 1066 and before that, right? How many people I've got inside me with their ideas and their feelings and their thoughts that I watched from up here as a spirit entity, looking at them living until it was my turn to come
Yeah.
down.
There is
So
this
all
family constellation that looks at that
yeah,
and
we
clear it
have
up. But also channeling works there too, also regressing. We're gonna talk about in another video. Since you mentioned the books, please everyone, if you like to find out more, because Margaret, she did already a lot. She covered a lot of topics in her 14 books. 14, probably more than 14, over 14. And these are channels. So this is how you're writing. So I advise maybe to go to Amazon. Probably that's the best way to find your books. They are on Amazon.
Yeah, and also my online publisher is easytimepublishing.com, spelled out in
All right.
English. And he's not going to be doing many more books anymore. So now my husband's learning to do them himself. So we put them up ourselves. And I've got a book that I'm still trying to work on, which is going to be my first audio book, called The Dark Side. Now, the reason for that is I need to teach people how to be master of the dark side within themselves, because we must have the dark side in order to work with the light side of ourselves.
Yeah.
So I can be miserable me and say whoa, 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 whoa about something, and then in 2 seconds bright and sparkly, and everyone's like, well, what happened to that mood you just had? Well, that's gone now. I'm on here now, And so we have to learn to balance that.
Yes, absolutely.
And a lot of people don't. They just live in misery.
Yeah,
and then
it's one-sided. Whether people actually try to live only positive life, which sooner or later is not going to work out, because if you one-sided, try to use your right hand all the time, it's not going to work. You need both. But we will talk about it. How about we will finish that topic about channeling now? We will.
Sorry, one last thing.
Okay.
Because I said that I said there's 3 ways. The ultimate trance work is when you've learned to surrender your body and let the spirit enter you. It comes in from the rear. You have a sort of chilly, warm feeling from the rear, and you feel like someone's moving your head like this, but you're not moving it. In other words, the spirit guide will move your body for you. They have to learn to work with your body and help you. At the same time, they have to learn to work with your brain. It takes time. So anyone who says, I've done 3 channeling classes and I'm a channeler, I'm going to be going, pardon?
Yes.
What do you do? You're a beginner. Okay.
Yes.
So I caution people, if you're going to be a channeler, make sure you have someone who is really a good teacher, who is going to guide you through the different levels of listening, learning,
especially that one, the trance one. Yes, absolutely. All right. So for today, we thank anyone to stay with us for an hour or so. And we will do a little bit more. Please comment under the video what was interesting for you. What would you like to hear more? Share with anyone who would be interested in the topic and who would like to learn channeling, and go easy easy way, safe way, and maybe not fast way, but solid way.
If I can interject here, if they want to know more, they can go to my website, which is Sumaris, S for sugar, U, M for mother, A-R, I, S for sugar again, center spelled American.com, and sign in there that what their name is, their email, and what they're interested in. And that'll come in my back office, and my husband will let me know, and then I'll be able to contact them. And have you got a website too that they can get to?
Yes, I will list all of our websites. If someone would like to read my book in English, I have only one for now, but I'm working on the second part. I have a series about dreams more. So the same way, that's another topic I will maybe not talk about it right now. My website is very simple, ifnotdance.com, but I will list everything. So if you like to connect with us, ask more, or there is something personal that you don't want to post it under the video, then then you can write, of course, email. And yeah, I think this is it for today.
Some people may have a special topic they might like that will help us, because we have such a panoramic amount of stuff to share.
Oh,
So
yes.
if they just know what they want to know about, that would be helpful too. But I want to say thank you so much to you for inviting me all the way from America right into your home.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. That's
Yeah.
lovely. Always lovely. Okay, I'm looking forward for more. And we already have something. We already have people set some topic, the next one about regressing, but we leave you right there for now. And the next one could be about regression sessions.
We could talk a little bit about that, a lot.
Right. All right. So, bye for now and till the next time.
Yes, goodbye, everyone. Thank you for
Bye.
listening.
Thank you.